Hello and welcome to Monarchist Minute, your royal news in the United States of America. I am Vice Chancellor Clements Magnolia. It's wonderful to have you here with us this most wonderful day. I am here with my fellow counselor, William Stout, as well as very good friends Constantine and Leon. Thank you all so much for coming on again. It's very rare that I'm actually on the podcast for 2 weeks in a row.
It's always good to have you, Clements. I wish you were on more often.
It's
I
always
enjoy
nice.
hearing the
Miracle.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised I was off a couple weeks personally.
Yeah, it was just me and Leon last week.
But we got
It wasn't
we
just
got
me and you.
quite a
I think
Well,
if I remember,
of the people that are here right now.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
oh yeah, out of the people that are here, yeah.
Yeah. Because Toby and Lucian were here this week.
Yeah.
But we got quite a topic ahead of us tonight. We're talking about democracy, the god that failed.
Quick question. Have any of us read it?
I have not. No.
No.
I have not either. I don't think any of us have read it. We should.
At least we're being honest.
At some point or another, we should probably get around it. No, I'm just gonna lie and say, yeah, I read it, and then just make
There's a lot of people on the internet who lie about reading things. Let's be honest.
That's
a lot of people.
I once, when we were supposed to read 1984 in high school, I once didn't read. I did not read the book and got an 88 on the test.
Well, I mean, okay, that's 1984. It's not that hard.
Yeah, no, it's not Democracy, the God That Failed, but it was just really fun.
Right, but title is deceiving. I just used the title because of the play on words. What we're actually talking about tonight is democracy and how it affects society, culture, social cohesion. Basically, the socio-cultural consequences of living in a democratic society long term.
Though I will make a note that talking about Hoppianism is not a bad idea for a future episode. Anyway, speaking of democracy,
requires us to all do research on him first.
Yeah, no, it does require us to actually read.
Have to.
I mean, we could just talk. We could just say random things the entire time. Anyway, on democracy, how do we feel about democracy broadly?
Well, I'm not against the system from the perspective of I do think that the people should have some say in government, but what I think the problem with democracy is that people in democratic societies tend to focus too much on democratic absolutism. This idea that democracy is pure, perfect, and the only way to fix it is to make things more democratic.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't worry, guys. We'll just vote it into we'll just vote the correct way next time. Trust.
Yeah, guys. Trust is Plan Patriot.
Yeah. Just one more election.
It's
just one more.
It's my conversations with a Presbyterian friend of mine when I was talking about the Reconquista. It's like just trust, bro. You guys will vote in the good people next time. Just trust.
Just one more election, guys.
One more election. We'll do it this time, bro. We'll win this one election and we'll never have to have another election again. We had another election and we lost. Next time.
Yeah,
next time for real.
Democracy. Because when people say democracy, I think people use it too much. At least here in the U.S., where it's its meaning has become kind of I don't want to say as vague and useless as fascism, but
because it's definitely not.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, there's definitely different types of democracy, and no, that doesn't mean parliamentarianism versus presidential, but sometimes people say democracy and they refer to the electoral process, the idea you should vote as a group for laws or for representatives. And then there's the democracy as in the ideal of the legitimacy of the system is based in the people, and the people being conscious and active with their rights.
Beast.
Yes, and in the most literal sense, we are not a democracy. In the most literal sense of the term, we are not a democracy. This isn't to say, we're a democratic republic. No, I'm just saying because realistically, our votes, yes, they're important, but they don't really matter because of the Electoral College and how that works. And on paper, the Electoral College is supposed to go with their constituents' votes, but does that even really happen?
I mean,
I don't know.
I get
Familiar
what
with the
you're
problem.
saying, but at the same time, I hate that argument because there's always that idiot who strawmans that. It's like, we're not a democracy, we're a democrat, we're a constitutional republic, and it like it means
not what
anything.
Oh, and I was
Boston
trying to
said,
avoid straw manning that
Yeah.
argument. I was trying to avoid that.
I
Because that's
hate people like that.
yeah,
I
no, those people are very annoying.
That's why that's always the old people. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, no, for example, my grandparents have said that.
Like,
I mean, okay.
think,
I mean, I've been around a little bit more political spheres than y'all have, and you do hear it a bit
Mhm.
more than simply the old people.
but you're also like in like the more like Republican, the actual Republican Party spheres more.
Mhm.
Like at least like the three of us, the other three of us, like it's more like the common man. It's more of a mixture of like left and right,
Yeah.
young and old.
I don't really get a lot of left, but I do get a ton of right. You know what I'm saying?
I wish I got more right because it's like I'm almost done with like my was it bachelor's degree, and it's like you know I'm surrounded by between like liberals and communists and all of them.
Oh yeah, communists are always.
So it's a bit of a drain personally, but and I also want to say this because I forgot to mention it before. Like a third thing, like a third like version of democracy. It's like I find it very strange how it's like people will say like people who advocate for democracy or whatever. It's like again they go back to like the legitimacy through like the people's will, but then it's like the very like wishy-washy on like majoritarianism and populism by extension. I see majoritarianism and populism as like inherently tied to the democracy. But like a lot of people like if you say that or you try and like allude to that, they're like, no, that's not democracy at all. But it's like, but it has the same kind of roots and it's all tied into each other. Like democracy is rule of the people. Like how do you determine what like the rule of the people is? It has to be by the majority. But like if you say that,
Fundamentalism.
then it's like, oh, well, at least in the American context, you know, the American legal context or something, it's like that's bad because if you even go back to the founding fathers, it's like you know we have to think about the minority, the rights of the minority. Now, minority as in the most vague, you know, general term of minority, not like the ethnic minority specifically, but it's you know it's trying they try and like strike this find this balance or like impose this balance that it's not part of what democracy actually is. And I really don't like this idea that like populism is inherently anti-democratic. I think it's like hyper democratic.
Populism is a symptom of
Populism is
democracy,
not a
not the
bug, it's a
downfall of it.
feature.
Yeah. And I just find it so strange when I hear this from people saying like, "Oh well, you know, we have to save our democracy from populism." But is this not the people? Or would you not be denying the will of the people? Because
Exactly.
if the
Yeah,
people
it's hypocritical.
choose to like put the belief and the trust in a leader who they believe can help save them from the system, you know, and you know, and a lot of people can admit, you know, there's like economic corruption or whatever. But it's like I don't know. It's like you admit that, but you can't admit that that's tied to the system in itself. Like you know, it's like people always say the politicians and the lobbyists and the corporations control the government, and the government is democratic. So like they just do this like cycle of running like the dog trying to run around and grab its tail. Where it's like you know, oh, we need to save democracy from democracy.
Yeah,
And
no, it's hypocritical to say the
it's
absolute least.
hypocritical and ridiculous.
But I think the biggest long-term flaw of democracy, and I think this is something you and I were talking about running the Twitter, Constantine, is that democracy eventually results in nations eating itself because the internal struggles for power within the country will eventually rip the country apart.
It's a real like screwed up Ouroboros of things. Yeah.
And
Hold on.
so,
See if I can find one of the tweets we mentioned.
yeah. So the idea basically being that in order for a democracy to work, the people must participate in the political system, and that means people have to be informed in order to participate. And that means the entire population has to be mired in a constant, basically, political swamp to. I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. They have to be mired in the political swamp to constantly be informed, and therefore they are constantly miserable as a result.
Yeah, but I would take it up. I would like just add one thing to that. It's like it's not they can't just be mired in the swamp. They have to be like constantly like pushing their way through it nonstop in order to like be like a like that theoretical ideal like productive citizen of the republic.
So,
I mean, would you
and
say that's a fair statement?
yeah, I would say that's a true statement. I think what brought up this conversation is one of those clickbaity videos that was going around online where they asked the people on the beach at spring break or like college kids are just walking around
Oh
because
yeah,
they
I
are
got
just
I got it right here. Hold on. Little more. Go ahead.
yeah. And so they were asking those college kids what they're concerned about, various political questions and stuff, and the kids weren't giving good answers. And for once, there was not people scolding them for being stupid, but there was a lot of pushback. It's like these people are so much happier and their lives are so much better because they are blissfully ignorant. And that
Yeah.
really
I
started creating this conversation of how democracy creates a toxic culture because it forces people to have to get involved in divisive issues.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually have the tweet right here. It was a Jesse Waters tweet that I quote tweeted. The Jesse Waters tweet originally said, "Spring break goes wild and the students have no idea what's going on." Like, for the quote, "The biggest issue in America is what bikini I'm wearing tomorrow, and we're going to war with Iraq. That's crazy, bro. Never heard the word Ayatollah in my life. Is Venezuela in Spain?" Like, these people just seem so much happier when they have no idea what's going on whatsoever. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, no, this is the ideal politics. This is the ideal common man politics. They shouldn't have to be informed about politics. They shouldn't have it shoved in their face constantly. And it would be awesome to have to have a life without all of these political influences shoving their views and ideas down their throats with 24-hour news cycles and propaganda mills. Great thing for these people to be able to enjoy their spring break without issues. That's what I'm saying.
It's one of those, it's kind of like, I guess the true lesson is a truly free society isn't a society where government isn't involved in your personal life. It's a life where you don't have to involve
Be
yourself
involved.
in
Yeah,
government.
you don't have to
It's a
involve yourself.
life free from worry, I think, is a better phrasing of that sentiment.
Yeah.
It's like you should be able to trust those in charge enough that you don't feel you have to constantly worry about politics.
Correct. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, one of the big issues with democracy, and well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. It requires the citizen, like the citizen body, to be like to be ideal, and it doesn't mean necessarily that they have to like all agree with each other, which I think is ridiculous. But we could talk about that later on the episode tonight. But like this idea that like people have to know every all the information about every possible topic in order to like then make like not only make a wise decision for themselves, but to like convince other people and stuff. It's too much. It's too much of a process. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't give a shit. People are more concerned about the hobbies, about the work life, about the health, and it's ridiculous. And
As they
it's
Well,
should be.
I find
I
it ironic. Oh, sorry. Let me just finish this.
yes, no, you finish though. Sorry.
People we look to like ancient Rome and Athens as like obviously these are like the birthplaces of democracy and republicanism and stuff, and like we can admit obviously there's differences, but we're not trying to like copy them tit for tat, but it's like it I how do I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm phrasing this poorly, but it's like even they realize that it's like this isn't, we can't have everyone possible, like every possible person participate in this, because after a certain threshold of, like, in terms of, like, numbers and proportions, there's gonna be more like useless people or like detrimental people than there are productive people in this process. And even with the like limited the limited amount of people they allowed into to participate in the system, even then, eventually there came to a point where it's like, okay, there's way too many people who are just not helping in this process, but it's like they're still allowed to take part in it, and they decayed. Athens fell, Rome fell. Obvious. To look at all like a bunch of other examples.
Everyone who has no business participating in democracy is, and everyone that honestly probably should be participating isn't.
Yeah, that I was saying,
Is that a good summary of what you're saying, Leon?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna lie. Your guys' mics keep cutting in and out for me.
Oh, well, what I
Well,
said is
I'll say this. This one quickly. Get this my point across is
Yeah.
that I think that democracy in the smaller scale amongst local levels is actually a very good thing.
agree.
And that because again, it's so much smaller that you can actually more people that way. You actually and you it's less people that have to work through it, so you actually can figure what the issues are, talk to people. It's more personable than what modern democracy is, which is so massive and overbloated, and it's so big and grand that I was looking on my county's YR group me, and people were saying, "Oh, I'm so worried about what's happening that we're going to have a nuclear war," and I'm like, "What on earth are you talking about? There ain't going to be a nuclear war." I mean, have you seen what's happening? I mean, the Iranians are pissing off everyone. Like, why exactly would there be a nuclear war? And this is the thing. It's just like everyone thinks that it's like, yeah. Sorry,
I think
we have. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, constantly you go because I got
Like,
a theory.
I don't understand the whole there's going to be a nuclear war about Iran thing, because we have A-10s flying over Iran that aren't getting blown to shreds by their supposed top of the line air defenses. Like, dude, they can't even shoot down the slowest planes we have. What makes you think that they're not? What makes you think that they're going to get a missile out that we aren't going to intercept? Okay,
yeah.
This is it's democracy in itself is a game of telephone coming from one person to another, to the point where the whole point gets so screwed up that it's basically yeah, we're at war with Iran, and then it eventually turns, oh, it's a nuclear war, we're all gonna die. It's fundamentally a game of telephone that just it screws the message up more and more and just breeds hysteria.
Of course, I just asked the question of, well, why exactly would we even be thinking that there's going to be a nuclear war when it's like none of this is even reminiscent to the Cuban Missile Crisis, for heaven's sakes. Like it's everything's on the assumption that maybe Iran has nukes, and it's a question of, well, why would anyone else even launch their nukes in the first place? Because no one has a reason to. It's just dumb. It's dumb, and it's democracy because everyone.
Russia has more of a reason to nuke Ukraine than Iran does. Even if because they probably want to. Russia has more of a reason to nuke Ukraine than Iran has a chance of nuking us.
Yeah.
Iran doesn't even have a missile capable of reaching us.
They hit Diego Garcia, which means they can hit Europe, which is effectively our backyard.
I didn't realize they managed to have a ballistic missile hit Diego Garcia.
Yeah, for 4,000 kilometers, I believe.
I must have missed that.
They said they didn't do it, but they totally did it.
There's a few things I want to speak about, like what we've talked about. I'm gonna forget. I got like 3 or 4 things. I'm gonna forget a couple of them, unfortunately. Like it's specifically with like the film about Iran. I mean, I don't want to not to shoot us in the foot, but I don't want to say that's necessarily like the direct effect of democracy, of a result of democracy. Sorry, I think it's more so it's like we just everyone. I think it has to do with like economic influence and social media influence and stuff more than it is like I mean, we can argue, obviously everything's connected. If we want to say that's the result, that's resulted in this Iran fearmongering, and those issues are the result of democracy. But like, I wouldn't say it's like a A to B. It's more like an A to D or an A to an E. That's just my assumption about that. But like, what I wanted to say was that two things. One, I think the founding fathers, and I can't remember if it was Hamilton or Madison. I want to say it was Madison, who said that like we need like a large republic with a lot of people in order to keep a representative democracy healthy. And I think him and the others were wrong about that because we're too big now where there's no cohesion. I think we can all agree on that. That
Yeah.
there's no like feeling of like a unity. And granted, again, you can say it's because of economic reasons or cultural or demographic
Well,
or what have you.
I
But
think it's in the way of trying to emulate Rome, because I mean our founding fathers were desperately trying to imitate Rome. That's a fact. They wanted to be like Rome so badly, and I guess that was him trying to say like, oh well that's what Rome did. Rome had to constantly be expanding to be able to kind of function. So I guess that's what he's like. Oh well, we just have to constantly have a bigger population, so the republic will work. I mean, if we just keep on growing, it'll just keep working, right?
I want to say if you want to use like the whole like Rome lopping as like a factor, I want to say that's more so them trying to justify like the perpetual warfare against like the Native American tribes than it is just like any more than anything else because you had all that kind of virgin land, the rest of the Mississippi, all the way to like the Pacific. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure that I'm trying to think of. I'm honestly I'm trying to retain like the other point I want to bring up before I can talk about anything else. Any guys one brings up, but it's like and you guys just said it. Everyone says like at the very least democracy works on like the local level, which it can. But I think it also ignores the fact that it does. And actually, this should actually support us more than anything else. Is that democracy even at a local level dies? I mean, again, look at like Athens or the Republic of Florence in like the Renaissance, and it's like these were localized democracies. I mean, rather with a good amount of people participated, rich and poor. And it eventually, I want to focus on Florence because it eventually it evolved from a democracy into a autocracy and a monarchy because eventually you just had like you were able to have a few families gain so much power and influence and control over the rest of the population that they just like they fought each other and said screw it at the end of the day now we're the Grand Dukes of Tuscany or whatever.
Well, I just want to say that it works. It works at the local level underneath a monarchy.
Okay.
But alone, no, it ain't gonna work. Which you are correct. It does not work when it's alone. But if it's not alone, it's underneath
I think that's a good
something
thing to
else,
point
then it
out.
does work.
Yeah, because like we can make the argument that like as on like a national level or like the highest level, I guess, to be more like vague about it, is that democracy will be like fatally flawed, where it will devolve into that. But like, if it's underneath like a higher authority, then I think it has a better chance at surviving. I think that's a good distinction to point out.
Circling back to the whole municipal democracy point that Clemens brought up earlier, I've been a proponent of the whole municipal democracy thing for a while now, mostly because it's how those great democracies like Athens and whatever worked. They worked on a city level because democracy really only works on a city level, maybe a state level, depending on what's the size of the state where you're from. But like, it doesn't really like the cohesion kind of wears down the higher you go. Like national, you have one party, you have red party, blue party, both sides hate each other. There's no cohesion there. They won't work together.
And the higher you go in government, also the harder it is to be informed about issues because the scale increases exponentially with every
Exactly, and that brings in the whole telephone point from earlier that was brought up because of the whole nuclear war Iran thing that Clemens brought up earlier. Is because the higher you go, the less informed more people are. Because what happens at the higher up eventually trickles down and is distorted on its way down by the people who are telling people. You know.
Yeah, I also want like because I'm just thinking about this now and I'm tying it back to what something we said earlier. But it's like the democratic form of government, however you know, in like the general way we define it in America. I mean, even like all like the most like expert or like most base level like legal scholars can admit that like one of the issues with democracy is that like it eventually it's really like it really puts the ball in the ballpark of like lawyers and businessmen, and it's like well it's
Yeah, it goes into the
not just
bourgeoisie.
knowledge of the system, but having the wealth and resources to like maneuver in the system dominates at the end of the day. And I'm thinking about this, and it's like you look at Athens, you look at Florence, you look at Rome, and it's like the democracies, but they're also aggressive expansionist empires. And it's like you hear a lot of stuff today. It's like, well, if America was to be a democracy, we wouldn't like be involved in any of these wars, whether because we have crappy allies or we will like overthrowing governments just like for the big oils or big sugar or something. And it's like no, this is part of the system because like I also view democracy and nationalism to an extent inherently intertwined because it's this idea of like the the people expanding for the people's benefit. And so it makes sense. Like again, you look at Athens or Rome or whatever, and it's like I don't know. It just seems to me like it's somewhat there's an inherent aggression within the system because you have like democracy, you have the legitimacy being in the people, everything for the people. Therefore, therefore taking over like other lands and stuff for the people's sake makes sense. I don't know. That went to a different tangent than what I thought it as, but I'm just trying to make connections.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. So where do we
Thanks.
want to take this conversation from here? Or
What's the
I would
next slide
say
again?
let's just get it out. How do we all feel broadly after this discussion on democracy? Same, different.
I feel much the same, and I agree with the talking points that democracy should be limited and be brought down to a much more local level. But I also feel it shouldn't be done from a point of considering that, the common thing we hear from reactionary talking points about the people being stupid or incompetent. I think we should rebrand the idea of getting rid of democracy because not because the people are stupid or incompetent, but because it is harming the people's mental health. Because it's harming their way of life by forcing them to be constantly involved in a political system where ultimately their opinions don't matter. It's creating a climate of anxiety and isolation and alarmism.
And
It
partisanship.
Yes, and partisanship. And we see this all the time, especially in our circle, because there is a direct correlation between radicalization and social isolation. And there's a feedback loop. There really is between radicalization and isolation, where the more radicalized you get, the more isolated you become. And the more isolated you become, the more incentive you have to radicalize because you have nothing else in your life that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So I
I get
really
what you're trying to say. I don't think any way we can like there's no way we can frame it where it's like we're gonna get more people to agree. Like I mean more people as in like as groups, not just on an individual level. Like where it's like, give up your rights you have within the system because it's for whatever reason, whether it's because it's harmful for you or it's not beneficial for you, people are not gonna want to give that up. Because they're not gonna want to give up anything to begin with, but especially something that's like it's viewed as so like inherent
right,
for
and
them.
you're right, but I feel like we can make a better case if we start talking about democracy as something that's destructive
that's
to social cohesion.
actively destroying and degrading our not simply not our culture, but simply our own personal selves and our mental abilities.
Yeah. Rather than just saying because people are stupid and they shouldn't have a right to say things, have an opinion that matters.
I mean, I can agree. Definitely, like being like so vulgar, and like just saying, people are stupid, and it's a very chud thing to do. I'm just gonna say it.
Chud?
No
You
one,
rank?
no one wants to listen to chud.
Hello there, Chucky.
Oh God, no.
Does anyone else have any final thoughts?
Not really. No, I mean everything I was gonna say has already been hit on the head pretty fairly.
Like what would be like ideally, I say ideally, but just like where should we go? I guess. I guess obviously we have general ideas of what should or shouldn't happen, but like I just don't see a way we can like get out of like this, like the road we're on now, without basically revolution. And again, that doesn't mean like the whole like Marxist interpretation of revolution, but like revolution in general, as in an upheaval. Because I don't see like this system or this process changing from how it is now. It might get worse, but it's not gonna go away.
I don't know where to go from here, honestly, and this is something we should probably ponder on. But we clearly have a case to be made for a sociological case to be made on the long-term negative consequences of living in a democratic system, and I think we need to start putting this in our wheelhouse more.
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely talk about it more. I I don't know. I mean, I guess again, making callbacks. The only way I can see us, the only way I can see like trying to like reduce democracy or kind of like getting like sullying its name to such like an extent is that you need like Caesarism at that point. You need to get the people to like want to give up the rights through like this belief. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it's Caesarism. I mean, you can look up the Wikipedia page about it. It's like you gotta give people to want to give up their rights and stuff through like the absolute abuse of the system. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of like grading for responses, trying to have more of a back and forth.
Do we want to do our closing prayer then? And
Oh, wait, yeah, we still got 2 more slides.
wait, we
You
still
guys
got
kept
four
saying
slides?
like, you guys kept saying final thoughts, and I don't know. I don't know if you guys.
I'm-
I thought we were basically done too because
Yeah, no, we still have 2 more slides, guys.
I mean, not just 2 more general slides, but yeah.
Depending on
I
runtime,
feel
I
like we
mean,
just didn't use the slides. We just started talking and we didn't even use the slides.
yeah,
I thought
low key. I mean, it worked. I mean, we totally. I mean,
What were
what's
the
the
other
next?
2 slides
What
again?
are the next?
like the societal ills, culture, the democratic process, and how do we fix it?
Oh,
Which are two points we pretty much already discussed anyway.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
unless we
we.
want to complain, we want there's any like anything specific. Like it doesn't have to be generally about democracy, but just like I guess anything like tangentially related to it.
I mean, yeah, we pretty much discussed everything anyway. I,
You-
you know, I don't think I needed the other 2 slides.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
What
no.
about this then? Just because seeing Trump and Biden made me think about this. Like,
Mhm.
how
I can go
effective
back
do
to
we
that
think?
slide.
Thank you. How effective do we think like democracy is? Oh, effective or ineffective? And like trying to like create coalition building and consensus.
Well, I actually watched an interesting video about this a while back, and it kind of fits into the old adage of too many cooks in the kitchen. The more people involved in the democratic process, the less likely it is to come out with a fair and equitable solution. simply because the fact of the matter is the more people involved in the democratic process, the less likely you're going to find a meaningful average where everyone is fairly represented.
Mhm.
So it's actually very interesting and contradictory, but democracy is actually more effective when less people are involved in the process.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
That's
I hadn't heard that
that's
one before.
another
That's an
question.
interesting one.
What?
I said I hadn't heard that one before. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it basically they found this trying to mathematically come up with better alternatives for first past the post. And they figured out that once you create an election system where there's more than three choices and more than three people voting, it's nearly impossible to create a system where everyone is equally represented. Somebody is always going to get screwed over simply because the law of averages and finding the most agreeable candidate or the most agreeable course of action or choice oftentimes means sidelining a very large amount of people in order to find that choice because the most agreeable person usually ends up not being the most liked person but the one that everyone is least offended by.
I mean, I
Mhm.
think mathematically that makes sense, but like, I think like, I guess to be devil's advocate, like it makes sense. Like if in terms of like personal relationships or like at least try to like plan for like a family dinner or a party or something. But like this, like we living in a country and stuff in a society, it's not you can't be so like one on one. It has to be like it has to cover everyone. We're talking millions of people here. So it's like, yeah, you can make maybe two guys to agree, but like, what do how do we like deal with the fact that is like all those millions of other people left out?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm shooting us at the foot here too by pointing that out, but yeah, I don't know, just thinking and stuff.
No, I think that's a valid point, honestly.
It's a good point. Yes.
I what about because I know there's like there's existed in the past in our country and there's still talks about it today and stuff. Like, what do we think about like trying to create a more limited democracy with not necessarily like a poll tax, but like more restrictions? Like you need like a higher education or some sort of test or something to qualify to vote in an election.
Oh no! You don't
How
get
do
it,
you
bro. That's racist. You can't do that.
look?
You can't do that. You can't put that in there. It's racist, bro. Trust.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
We all
no.
know
That
that
just
one guy in the chat's gonna say that.
disproportionately affects brown people because of material conditions or whatever.
The issue I do have with that is that our education system is
His
upper
ass.
education is rather politicized now. I mean, we see that
That too.
yeah.
I was just at a conference earlier today, and it's like one of the speakers when I was trying to like eat my like pasta and chicken, and it was talking about like well, we live in an age where it's like misinformation and lying and just like actually just lying about facts. So just like saying facts don't matter is a common thing now, and it's like I don't know, like I think some people are like fear mongering too much about it or like overcompensating. Like there's always some people who you can point out good healthy grass is green, the sky is like usually blue, and it's like well no it's just wrong. Well like those in a way like there's some things that it's not that shouldn't be used as an absolute for like label a group or like a
No,
phenomenon.
guys, the sky
Like
is red. Trust.
red
Depends
sky.
on the time of day.
Yeah. But like okay, I think like a good example is the Minnesota fraud. I I think that's still a relevant enough example. It's like part of the argument there is the fact that the state government has been forging papers at the very least, kind of just like greenlighting forgeries without doing any verification. And then some people will come out and say, well, if the government said it was like only it's only these numbers or something, therefore the idea that it's like higher or lower, it's like, it has to be false. And it's like, I'm not sure why people would be so willing to trust the government, especially it's like usually the leftists who don't trust the government to begin with because it's like fascist, capitalist, imperialist, and all that nonsense.
Do we talk about people's brain dead takes on capitalism today? Because I have a crazy thing I saw. I have a crazy thing I saw on the Moa account today. It was one of, frankly, the wildest things I've ever seen. Okay, so this person has voting rights. By the way, has voting rights. It's a tweet that says, presumably made by themselves, that says 1.6 billion people killed by capitalism. You want to hear some of my favorite things on this list? Let's see. We have Cambodian genocide because they weren't communists. That's capitalism's fault.
True.
We have, let's see, there's another funny one somewhere. The Irish potato famine was capitalism's fault. Some of these I don't know. Children killed by preventable diseases since 9/11, 206 million. Famine of 1932 to 33, the Holodomor was caused by Kulak policy in the weather. 7 million because capitalists control weather, guys.
Okay, this is obviously a
I'm gonna say this. That person very likely has a college degree.
I can't tell if they're rage baiting or like.
I hate that too because we live in a rage bait culture.
They're not rage baiting. Not rage baiting. This is serious. They were serious.
And this person, it's very likely that this person has a college degree, mind you. Very likely
voting
has a college
rights.
degree. Yeah, and voting rights. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I captioned this tweet with, "We don't have a witty remark on this one. There's just so much wrong here that incorrect just isn't an accurate description."
A wonderful example.
Oh, sorry, go on, Scott.
I said it's a wonderful example proving that being educated is not the same thing as being intelligent.
Yes, I saw earlier
today. Speak and being able to read book and write essay does not grant you intelligence.
That's true. It's very true. I have BS'd every single essay I ever got. Worst one I got was a B-.
Oh yeah. No, I think the worst one I ever did was like a C+. But you know.
But I just want to say that. Oh great! Now you made me forget what I was gonna say. Dang. Oh no! So earlier today I saw a clip from Jubilee. Jubilee. I don't like it too much, but it was two people. It was four people. Sorry, two people on each side of the argument arguing. The topic was uncontrolled immigration is a negative for America, and a black woman who has a university degree was arguing that if someone from a Middle Eastern country, that from that culture, because there are legitimate issues with pedophilia in that general area. It's not big, but it's certainly there. And the question was, if someone from there says to you, yes, I am going 100% to try to marry a 9-year-old and impregnate her, would you, if you're an immigration officer, reject their application? Her response, no, I would not.
These people have the right to vote, by the way.
Did you give a reason why?
Because legally he can't do that.
What?
Well, because the law says that he can't do that, so it wouldn't matter.
The intent is there. The intent to break
doesn't matter. It's the law. The law says you can't do that. And
no, I understand that, but I think all four of us are recognizing that she's taking out the human factor. And like she's putting like the idea like the supremacy, the law is like absolute, and therefore humans can never break the law because it's just not possible in nature. And which is whole, it's like not whole like a giant part of like her frontal lobe or whatever is just like gone. Like because
the funniest part from that clip, was that it was the two conservative ones was one was clearly a Jewish man, and the other one was Mike Jones, who, if you know him, that's Inspiring Philosophy, the Christian apologist. And Mike Jones's face, he just his complete and utter shock and horror at her answer. And I'm just like, yeah, Mike, that's just how these people work. And
I guess it's all the topic now, and I think we can factor this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on, Will.
I'm just like, how stupid can you get? With that logic, threatening to kill someone is an assault. It isn't a
It's not an
isn't a
actionable
legal offense, but it
It's
is in
just free
fact
speech.
illegal to threaten to kill someone.
Yeah, no, but no.
No.
According, it's just free speech. Speaking your intent to break the law is, by all accounts, I don't think that's legal. Hold on. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're saying like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to say anything on the podcast. Obviously, I'm not going to be saying anything ridiculous. But like, I don't think like there. Hold on, let me Google this.
Yeah, well, he does that. I want to bring my point across before I forget it and stuff. And I'm gonna try and tie this back into the overall topic of democracy and stuff. Is that if we want, like, I got no issue with immigration in itself. Personally, I can't be against that because of like my background, but like, you can't just bring anyone over, give them like citizenship and like the right to vote and stuff, and that's it. And it's like it's almost like bare bones thing. Like the people do bring up like genuine issues about like other like cultural or civilizational values, like yeah, I get like child marriage, I guess, and it's not part of like American culture or values or anything like that, and we can't allow it to just like be like slowly brought in or increased and stuff. Like I think I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to like, I guess, educate, quote unquote educate like immigrants or whatever, in order for them to like understand like the American context, or like just America, and so that they can then participate in like within like the parameters of like American politics. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to force, not force. I'm overcorrecting myself, but like you need that kind of education. And again, I mean, if you want like a democracy to work to begin with, you need people to be educated. You need them to be smart. You need them to not be dumbasses. But especially with like the whole immigration angle, you need them to understand like what the values and the context, and like the line of like the line drawn in the sand of like what is and isn't allowed.
All right, I did look into it. According to the University of Reddit, yes, I know, very reliable source.
Oh my god.
So true.
Yeah, no, it's not illegal to state your intent to commit a crime, but it is highly incriminating if you actually do commit the crime. You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense, I guess.
Like, let's bring back that example from Jubilee. Let's say that guy gets into the country after saying, "Oh yeah, I'll marry a 9-year-old," or whatever he said. And then he comes into the country and actually does marry a 9-year-old, despite the fact that it's against the law. That would be pretty incriminating. The fact that he said it on his immigration interview, that'd be like, it'd be like, oh, there's signs.
Would the immigration officer be liable?
I don't think they'd be liable because, actually, I don't know.
No, they wouldn't. Oh, you
They
also
wouldn't
have
do
to
that.
remember a lot of things with like not just the government but businesses too, is that there is no personal like accountability. Like you can a lot of these people like within the bureaucracy and like the corporations can use the Nuremberg defense if like I was just following orders while I was just like doing paperwork, yeah, and it's like so they can push it away. So yeah, you might hopefully get rid of like punish the person, like the actual criminal, like I guess the pedophile, but like you didn't take care of like the structural issue that like instead of having the pedophiles come in and like not be filtered out. And so I think personal responsibility accountability for people in the government and in businesses too, because if we're gonna keep on the immigration topic, it needs to become a thing. It can't just be, oh, I was just following orders and stuff.
Yeah, no, you can't Nuremberg your way out of this, dude. That should not be a thing we're allowed to do.
I agree 110%.
Yeah, no. You should not be able to Nuremberg your way out of, like, oh, I was just following orders from the higher. No, bullshit. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. You knew it was illegal, yet you did it anyway.
Yeah, and even if it was true that
Illegal
like
and morally questionable, you still did it.
even if it is true that like the boss told them to like to ignore these things or to like just do it and push it under the table or whatever, then the boss should be punished too, along with the
Oh yeah,
worker
no,
and along
exactly.
with the criminal. Like this is a whole like chain of command.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. If the boss tells the employee, like, yo, do this if you lose your job, I don't think the employee should be held liable for that. That's a hot take. I don't think they should be held liable for that, given the circumstances that it threatens their livelihood. But the boss should be like double punished for it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I see that. I understand that. Like I think maybe
because
it
if my
depends on
boss
like
told
the
me to do
individual
something shady
case.
or it would lose my job, lucky for me, I don't have that problem. I'm unionized. But like, if I was told and I wasn't unionized, yeah, I'd do it because it would be a risk to my livelihood if I didn't. Like,
No, I get it. So like.
not to say
again,
like there's
it's not.
a certain line to that, obviously. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna go
I
kill
mean,
somebody.
the context is needed for the cases, but I would genuinely agree. Like, I mean, if you're actually like forced into doing something, then it's like there's less accountability. Not that there isn't any, but there's less accountability on you compared to the
Mhm.
person in charge of you.
Yeah,
So,
there's more accountability on the person above you. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about how we can fix this issue if we haven't already.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
no.
tried
How
to.
do we do that?
Like I said, I don't think there's much we can do. I mean, we could
Yeah,
try
is
and
it
like
even fixable?
limit. We could try and limit like the issues about it. Like again, and not that they like trying to. Obviously, there's consequences to everything. Like I think maybe we could try to limit democracy, but there'll be consequences to that. And I'll throw a bone and stuff. Like if we do implement like certain ways to like limit who's allowed to or not allowed to vote, yeah, the ethnic minorities are probably gonna see like a greater proportions, but if not higher numbers of like people excluded. And you're gonna have the chuds on the far right or the dissident right who are like, oh yes, I can finally get my like white ethno state and stuff. So that's a possibility that could happen. But like again, that's a result, but there's also the possibility that you get a lot of fucking morons out of the system. Obviously these two aren't like intrinsically tied or diametrically opposed, but these are just two possibilities that could happen from that. Though, I think for all purposes here as a group, is that maybe it wouldn't be bad to try and like go more into the Caesarism, because like I can't see us with how if we already began as a country as lopping as Rome, then it makes sense, especially with like the other like strains and connotations that like we're gonna have to go through the Roman method then. If our identity is so like tied into the Republic, whatever, however you may define that, then we probably have to do like the whole Caesar Augustus thing, where it's like I've restored the Republic and given it back to you, but I actually hold all the power and stuff. Because you're not gonna get people to like say, oh my God, thank God we got this like random French prince to become like our master and lord. You know, and to return us to like the glorious days of feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have for that. I don't know. I was trying to think of a way to better like poetically end that, but that's just my tirade.
I just think the way we fix it, well, is we need to find ways to effectively restrain the electorate, but also in ways that don't give too much power to specific groups at the expense of other groups. It's a very delicate balancing act, and there's no real way to do it right. Because you're inevitably going to end up giving the privilege to a certain group of people. And who that group of people are going to be the people who end up making the rules going forward.
Almost inevitably the burger class.
Yeah.
Or the bourgeoisie, if you want to be a commie about it.
All right. Well, no, we try to not associate ourselves with the Marxist way of looking at things, but yeah.
I mean, a broken clock is still right 2 times a day.
Yeah, I
is.
get that. It's just the fact that it's like that Tom is so like the connotations of that one word. I don't know about you guys.
Which is why I say burgers.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear anyone say bourgeoisie, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy is a fucking like Marxist. Even if I know, even if I know the person isn't, it's like, oh, it's just such a Marxist thing to say. Any other final thoughts?
Oh, yes. Final thoughts.
I ain't got anything else.
I think we've said pretty much everything that needs to be said.
I think we've all said our piece, made our points, if not thought of like solutions. We've at least provided more context to walk off of in the future.
Yeah.
Without further ado, shall we go to our closing prayer?
Yes, sir.
All right, please bow your head and join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you all for joining us this week on Monarchist Minute. We hope to see you again next week, same time, same place. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video with your friends. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Substack, Apple Podcasts, whatever you do to listen to podcasts, hit whatever the bell button is that'll give you the notification every time a new episode comes up, and share with your friends if you like the content. Follow us on social media, and if you want to get involved with the cause, send us an email, send us a DM on one of our social media platforms, or join us on Discord. Until next time, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you, and good night.